Today I'm going to read some Maramakoimos, and I'm going to maybe even start off with before that, a fascinating machlokes between Rabbi Yashiv and Rabbi Avrohom Baruch Zacharish. You have a fellow, and there are many people that are nichshol in this avera, possibly. Okay? There are people that have sakeret, that have diabetes, and even though they have diabetes, a piece of cake is a piece of cake. You can't be mavaster on a piece of cake so easily. So they eat their piece of cake, and they're religious Jews, so they make a bracha on the piece of cake. Is it mutter to make a bracha on a piece of cake if you're diabetic? You eat it religiously. Oh, that's good. Okay. If he wouldn't eat it religiously, he probably wouldn't be a diabetic. It's probably the two go together. So Rabbi Yashiv Paskin that the diabetic, obviously it depends how bad the case he is, he makes a bracha rishona and he doesn't make a bracha achrona. Why is that? He says because, as I heard this once from Rabbi Orlovsky, he said, which cookie in the cookie box is the most fattened? The first one. Because once you eat the first one, the rest of the box goes, right? So even for a diabetic to have one crumb, that's okay. The problem is that you don't stop at one crumb. For a bracha rishona, one crumb, you need a bracha. But you ready to need a kezayis, so you ate isser. It's forbidden to eat. It's like eating chazer. This was Rabbi Yashiv's position. Okay, so the diabetic who ate. Now, obviously, not all diabetics are created equal. I know that most diabetics aren't created, but they become. But if a person is eating the amount, which is the amount of a kezayis already be poison for him, there's no better word to use than that, so then he doesn't make a bracha for him. That was Rabbi Yashiv's opinion. And Rabbi Avrohom saw this sock of Rabbi Yashiv and wrote a tshuva against Rabbi Yashiv. And he says, you don't make a bracha rishona either. Not only don't make a bracha achrona, so listen to this, you're going to go home and say, what did you hear in the shiur Rabbi Zacharish? He says, you don't make a bracha rishona or a bracha achrona when you eat a piece of cake, right? That's basically, just leave out the small point that we're speaking about a diabetic, right? Just a minor issue. He doesn't break. Even though if you eat a mashu, you still have to make a bracha. If you eat a lot, so the cumulative effect, we say that each minuscule amount in its own was detrimental to him. Even the first cookie in the box. The Maisa, it adds to the situation. We find that the Isra of a Chatzi Shir, etc. The person eats a kezayis, every mashu is hurting him, and therefore he does not make a bracha. Now I think that to most people, the question, even Rabbi Yashiv, he's the Mekel, he's the Machman, Rabbi Yashiv. What is he? The one who says you make a bracha rishon, you make a bracha rishon. That he's a Mekel, he's a Machman. What is he? I'm not sure I know the answer to that question, right? Depends what it means to be a Mekel or to be a Machman. But what I'm first pointing out is even though we have a situation where something, it could sometimes be, we'd understand eating, you eat without a bracha, you're over an avera, and you eat this stuff without a bracha, you're not being over the avera of a bracha levatol, and with the bracha, you're over an avera. So what did we just say? That not all halachas are created equal. There could be one person that is one way, one person the other way. And this, by the way, this is very negeh halacha l'maisa. Okay, right now I'm speaking very seriously. There are many times that there's a kiddush, and somebody wants to be mitzi other people by the kiddush. And the person who's the mechubedik person, the senior fellow over there, is a diabetic. You can't be yaitz kiddush with him according to Rabbi Avrohom. Why? He's not mechuyev in a bracha. This is for real. And not only that, if you're a good Chassidish Jew, so you make kiddush on a schnapps glass, right? That's real poison. That's like a guy. That's like a guy who's has high blood pressure eating herring. I mean, these are things that are these Jewish diseases, right? These are a person's not supposed to be doing these things, but a person has to be aware of that. So here we have case number one. We have a halacha of health that takes us out of the regular halacha situation. I'm going to go to the next case of hope. The next case of hope, which I'd like to discuss, is a Oinig Yantif. The Oinig Yantif discusses if a person is sick and he doesn't have, and we'll just use this as an example, he doesn't have his medication, whatever it may be, and he eats matzah, and matzah is unhealthy for him, and then he gets better. The Oinig Yantif says he has to eat again. Because when a person is in the halachic sakana mode, he's not obligated. He's pater. He's pater. If he's pater, then he's not yaitza. This is a very important idea. A person has, and I use this example all the time because I think it's the simplest to understand. The Rabbi Yehuda discusses an onen is pater from all mitzvahs. So he has a question. This is a question that doesn't exist so much in Eretz Yisrael, but it exists in Chutz La'aretz. And Chutz La'aretz, it's also to die on a weekend because the unions don't bury you on the weekend. So you have to rot until the unions will bury you. Here in Eretz Yisrael, there's no such thing. Before the night is out, they bury a person. So what could happen, and this happens all the time in Chutz La'aretz, a person becomes an onen, and it's in the middle of Sfiras HaOmer, and an onen is pater, according to most opinions, he's pater from Sfira. So he's not going to count, and by the time they bury him, he missed the day, and you could do the math yourself. The guy who was an onen becomes a chiyuv, and he needs the omid. So here you have a guy who's davening for the omid, and he can't be moitzer the tzibur with Sfiras HaOmer. Why? Because he missed Sfiras HaOmer. Right? Is that clear? The halacha? Oh, it's not an excuse. You didn't count. It's not. We're not penalizing you because you're a bad guy. If you can't count if you're missing a day in the middle. Oh,
it's a big drasha for every mitzvah.
Oh, that's a big drasha. That's right. I'll tell you. I'll just tell you what I call the most exciting answer to that question. As Mr. Gross said, there are many bar mitzvah boys who have that drasha. Those boys who get the bar mitzvah during Sfira. The most amazing answer that I have for that is Rabbi Yosef Engel's answer. That he says if you can't be Mekayim because you're not a Bar Chiyuv, but you can be Mekayim al Chinuch.
You don't have to be an owner. If you cross the date line in the wrong direction, you have the same problem. Zero.
Oh, okay. 1 second. Okay, well that's fine. But this issue, I'm just saying that this issue is an issue, and the Rabbi Yehuda discusses he misses out. He can't be mitzi anybody. This is very important. The person who's not a Bar Chiyuva, the person who lives in Yerushalayim cannot be yaitz to somebody in Beit Shemesh with Mikra Megillah on Purim because it's not Purim for him. Okay? So a person who's a onus, who's a chayla, is not mitzvah in the mitzvah. And I'm just going to take this one step further. There was a choila that wanted to fast on Tisha B'Av. You know, I say that I've been in this business a few decades, and unfortunately, anybody who's 60 or older, I guess I'm pretty safe saying that over here. So if they find out that they can't fast on Tisha B'Av, so maybe I can fast a half a day, you know, they try to work out a deal with me to be able to somehow have a Tisha B'Av. Okay, sometimes the younger people I find, and hopefully when they get older they'll mature too, but when the younger people, they're looking for a heter, so to speak. Do I have to fast? Maybe I can get a heter, right? This probably has to do with age also. I'm not sure it has to do with generation we're in. But echshahu, that's not really important. Someone asked the Chazon Ish this question. He wanted to fast. So he figured he's going to go and ask the Chazon Ish because the Chazon Ish was the notorious machmer. So he's going to ask the Chazon Ish, and the Chazon Ish said, you're a chayla, you can't fast. So the person said, but Rebbe, I want to fast. So he said, you could not eat, but you cannot have Tisha B'Av. The fast of Tisha B'Av wasn't set for a chayla. You just can't fast Tisha B'Av. You could fast a private fast on the 9th of Av, but you cannot have Tisha B'Av because Tisha B'Av is only for people who are healthy. You're not healthy, you don't have the fast. Even if you fast, you're not Makayim it.
Because he missed the day, he's not disqualified from davening. He's only disqualified from saying the bracha for the
100%. Yes, but it's very embarrassing. It's very embarrassing. It's like, you know, it's like a sign that, you know, that you were not diligent. 100%. You get down the rest of davening, it's 100% okay. It's just that sphere sha'omer has to have somebody else we might see, and it's that people find that very embarrassing. That's an issue. I will just say that I was at a levaya of somebody I knew very well. He was nifter at 92, just a little over a month ago, and recently, about 3 years ago, it was the first time that he ever missed Sfira Sa'omer at night. He corrected himself in the morning. But he had a family simcha, and he thought he was daven Ma'ariv before and daven after, you know, one of those situations. So he was 90, for 80 years or something like that, he never missed Sfira Sa'omer at night. Pretty impressive. Okay? None of you can claim that you haven't missed Sfira Sa'omer for 80 years. Right? Okay. I don't think so. I don't think there's anybody here that can boast that. At any rate, that's number one. So we're finding again a person who has a refuah issue sometimes is potter from mitzvahs, and sometimes is potter from brachas. That you have to know that's a real issue. Now, I would like to discuss the subject of what is the percentage rate that is going to determine that something is a sakon. Okay? Now, in my opinion, all that I'm going to say over here is a generalization. It is not bottom line halacha. Okay? And this has to do with, we mentioned this last week, people having different kinds of operations and perception, but the percentage rates of what do we consider dangerous that a person is allowed to or not allowed to be Machal Shabbos or do an Isser for. And I'm going to share with you a question that I was asked this Friday. I get asked this question about once every 6 weeks at least. In other words, it's always a little bit of a different mutation, but the same question. Some lady has a baby, and for whatever reason it is, she would like to pump milk, feed it to the baby, and she doesn't have enough milk to do that in advance, so she wants to pump milk on Shabbos to feed it to the baby on Shabbos. For a lady to pump milk on Shabbos is an Isser D'Oraisa, Isser Skila. Chilul Shabbos Gomer. However, if the baby needs it, you could drive the baby to the hospital. You can also pump milk if it's Pikuach Nefesh for the baby. That's simple. Everybody knows that. They didn't say anything that's difficult to understand. But we all know that you can go to the supermarket and you can buy the fake stuff. Right? We'll just call it that right now. So why is it Pikuach Nefesh? Just use the fake stuff. What's the answer to that question? What? Yeah, so some people can and some people can't, and it depends where you're up to in the nursing situation. Sometimes what happens is that the situation arose on Friday afternoon. They didn't have time to pump up in advance. And some ladies don't have enough milk. They have to go to a lactase consultant to get enough milk all the time. Whatever, but that's a good idea if it works. But we don't always have the luxury. They don't always listen to me when I tell them pump double on Friday. What could I do? Right? So the Chazon Ish writes about this in the Sefer. And he basically says something unbelievably unclear. He says that if you feel that it's Pikuach Nefesh, you're allowed to. And if you feel that it's not Pikuach Nefesh, you're not allowed to. More or less. That's more or less what he says. Now, what does that mean? So I'm going to share with you another question. I'm going off subject, but I want to hear from you an answer to this question. This is a fascinating question I'm going to ask you. Someone calls me up. Rabbi Zacharish, a newly married guy. His wife is pregnant, having their first baby. Rabbi Zacharish, I want to take a doctor, some specialist, some fancy guy, and I want to bring him in. And he doesn't work on Saturdays because he's a fancy guy. My allowed to call him on Shabbos and have him on Shabbos to come to deliver my baby. So I say, if your wife feels more confident with that doctor, it's 100% mutter. Okay? So far, so good. I don't think I said anything that where people are not aware of. Now comes the bomb question. He calls up the guy on Saturday morning, and the guy answers the phone, and he's annoyed. And he says, "Doctor, I need you to come. My wife is in the delivery room." He says, "I'm on the 9th hole." Okay? And we're in the middle of the tournament. I'm coming out. So he says, "Listen, I need you to come now." He says, "There's nothing doing. You want me to come? You have to pay triple." Okay? He's not going to give up his golf game just to deliver a baby. Right? So the guy comes running to me and says, "Rabbi Zacharish, the guy wants triple the money. Am I mechuyev to pay triple the money to use the doctor?" What do you guys say?
How desperate his wife is to have this particular doctor.
1 second. Beforehand, did I ask that question when he said his wife wants to use that doctor? You could be Mochal Shabbos and call that doctor. Did I have to ask him how desperate is she? Now, the question over here, what I wanted people to be, is to be fair, equal. Why is it that you say that now and you didn't say that before? That's the question that I'm asking you. Or maybe you do have to say that in both situations, or in both situations you have to spend the extra money and get the specialist. The wife's in the hospital and she didn't listen to me to wait till Sunday to have the baby. I don't understand why. I told her to wait till Sunday after the golf was over, and here she is in the hospital. So what do we do?
People get qualified to deliver the baby. The phone call shouldn't even be made. Shouldn't even make the phone call.
So you should never always in the hospital, there's always somebody that's qualified. Never call it outside doctor. Okay. All right. Am I allowed to? So am I allowed to not use the doctor that I wanted to just because it cost me a few extra $1,000?
with the wife's approval. You say, psychologically difficult for her. She wants a certain doctor. It depends on him. Any ailment. That's the proof. I'm not sure.
I don't know. That's why I'm asking you. You guys are the doctors. You guys are the rabbis. I mean, it's okay.
Any ailment is two things: the physical and the emotional. So, to call the doctor in the beginning, no question. No, it depends on her. If the emotions are there, then we can do it. In Shabbos, we can only follow Shabbos on that even he says no, we are allowed to do.
Okay. So now, you want to say?
He called Shiloh before Nefesh in the beginning. But as soon as he started to negotiate, it became a phone call of Masar Matan. I don't think that's a full Shabbos on Masar Matan.
Well, right now it's a question: is the guy going to come in or not?
Yes, decide.
Who has to decide? The doctor, the guy, the wife? Who decides?
Shabbos for the comfort to do it. Even the Shabbos for the comfort, you can do it. You should know your questions. Okay.
I agree. Over here, the lady says, you know what? She's a Eishes Chayil. She knows her husband works hard. So she says, you know what? I'll rough it. What do you mean? The Koch Nefesh, who's a better doctor? Over here, you have a day because she says, I'm willing to be mavata on the money. We're speaking about a human life. How do you put a price tag on a human life? Is that a question or an answer? That's not a... The bottom line, yeah, is a person mechuyev? Is there a price tag? I could say, I'm not going to spend money. Let the person die. We'll use an inferior place. The inferior place is also accredited, right? No, it's not. We're not selling the lady down the tube.
If you already made the phone call, you should pay the money. The wife wants it, but maybe you can talk to the wife and change your feeling.
But it's not a question of her feeling. I have over here a person. You know what? That's right now. I have over here a person that has to have open heart surgery. And there's one guy who's a top-notch guy, and he takes $10,000. We'll speak about real terms. He takes $4 million, right? And then you have a second guy who only takes $2 million. Are you allowed to take the guy with $2 million? Or are you mechuyev to take the guy for $10 million? Is that this is a price to human life? No, this is a serious question. No, forget about Shabbos. It's the same question. If you have a better medical option, are you mechuyev to do it? That's the question which I asked. Whatever situation you want. Is there a situation where it's mutter, a situation that it's also? An open heart. So let's talk about open heart surgery. Am I mechuyev to take the guy for 5 times the price? Anybody want to answer? What?
I think so.
You're mechuyev to. What do you say?
I will be shocked for giving the wrong advice.
Well, we're not talking about the lawyers coming in and suing right now. We're not talking about that. What do you think?
I don't think we have to go to a limit. I can do.
Okay, but you can choose to do that and be Machal Shabbos? So this is the problem. I believe what you're saying is correct. And this is very problematic. What you're saying that doesn't make any sense. We have to make sense out of this. We're going to say that it's permissible to use the lower grade care. And at the same time, it's permissible to be Machal Shabbos to take the higher grade care. And that happens to be the halacha. That is a stira.
This is the lower grade case, and something happens. What are you going to say? What are you going to say?
I will quote a doctor. I'll quote a doctor. A doctor one time said, why is it when I'm successful, you say you're a good shliach from Hashem, and when I'm not successful, I get sued? Su Hashem. Are you mechuyev to take the best doctor?
There's a reason why the guy's hired because it's better.
You want to know something? I want to tell you something. You are right. But not necessarily do you need the better guy. Sometimes there's an operation. What? You know what? You're right. But we know. Let's think about simple things. You have to take the best dentist. What? A dentist also? I don't think you have to take the best dentist. I don't think personal because your son's a dentist, right? But I don't think you have to take the best dentist. Just don't take the best painter. You don't have to take the best of everything. And not only that, there's a God out there, and the God could make it that the low-class guy could also be successful, make it that the high-class guy can mess up. The person has to do reasonable ishtadlus. Now, I'm not right now discussing the place giving the best that say, sure, take the best. Some will say, you don't have to, I'm not getting involved in the hashkafic aspect of what one is obligated to. I'm right now speaking about the halachic, just the halachic aspect. And the answer to this question is, it seems to me, based on the reason that you're allowed to be Machal Shabbos is not for the same reason that a person is obligated. One is a pasuk of a Samal Adam Yecha, and another pasuk is V'chai Bahem. They're not learned out of the same place, and they have a different laws to them. A person has the right, there's a wiggle room, and a person has the right to say, I want more or I want less, because, as you all say, you never is enough. We're talking about a human life. But a person has the right to say that I feel that I did enough. Obviously we're not talking about a cobbler that's going to do open heart surgery for you. We're talking about somebody that's accredited to do it. He's just not the best guy. That's all. That's the guy we're talking about. I'm not thinking about anything different than that. Okay? So that's first of all. Important concept. The obligation to do the best, one is not necessarily obligated to do that. And a person has the right to take the least. And therefore, also, sometimes, and this is where Moshe Feinstein writes this in the Tshuva, it's a fantastic Tshuva, but Moshe Feinstein writes about before we get this, okay. Well, first we'll speak to the servant of the Yehuda, and then we'll say the Yehuda. The Noda Yehuda has a shiur about a man who wanted to go hunting for sport. And the person who wrote the question to the Yehuda wanted to know about Tzar Balechayim, etc. Is it permissible to go hunting for sport? And the Noda Yehuda writes a very strong tshuva against this whole thing. And then he comes and makes a left turn. He says you're not allowed to hunt for sport because a person could die. The bears could attack you. I don't know, whatever it is that you're hunting for. And he quotes a Ramban in Chumash. The Ramban in Chumash says that Esav said, "Anochi holech lamus," I'm going to die. And he said, why? Because I davened already. Thank you. 9 o'clock Meyer for whoever wants. Okay. I know I have an occupational hazard because I'm a hunter, and therefore Shkoch never done. And it says, "Mi lanu yadeya lotzu tzayid yeser me'esav arasha." Who knows how to be a hunter more than Esav? And yet he says, "I'm going to die for my occupation." It's usher to hunt for sport. However, if you want to do it for a living, you're allowed to. You're allowed to have an occupation that's dangerous. And he brings his raya. I would like to share with you my raya. I think my raya is an excellent raya. The Shevet, which gets a lot of coverage, is Zvulun. Because Zvulun had this business deal with Yisachar. Zvulun did the work, and Yisachar did the learning, and they made this kind of shuttas, Yisachar's Zvulun deal. And that was like a fantastic thing. No, what did Zvulun do for a living?
Sailor.
He was a sailor. A person's a sailor. What do you have to do when you come home? Bench criminal. Why? It's dangerous. What's a good Jewish boy doing such a dangerous job? What? To make money. Okay. All right. You sound like a Jew. Right? So, what? Oh, okay. All right. That could be. That could be. We know, though, in this week's Parsha, this idea that that the person is doing a mitzvah, the makom sakana, it's not Megan or Ratzil Torah. It's a sakana. Now, how dangerous is it really to go sailing? No, even those days. It was dangerous. But it wasn't like a person went sailing is crazy, right? There was danger. There was a real danger. A real danger. But that real danger isn't dangerous enough that for a good reason you can't do it. Now, you wouldn't say a person who does it for living is crazy. Now, I'm going to take this a step further, and I'm going to say something that I'm not sure about. This is a non-political question. This is a halachic question. You have a soldier in the Israeli army, and he finished his 3 years. Is he allowed to stay in the army? Why? So jump off a cliff because you want to. What? But you know, it's I don't know if you know. I don't know if you know that this is a dangerous place to be an Israeli soldier. You know what I mean? I wouldn't want to be one. You know, it's dangerous, right? The answer is for an occupation, right? That's the answer. What? Make a living. Okay, so say no. We speak about that's way worse than sailing, right? To be an Israeli soldier. Now, if the guy will come to you and say, just imagine you're the guy's mother. He says, why can't you find a nice, good job, like a desk job? What are you doing? What? You got right? That's
We see the Tanakh around David's time that people had careers. He had to be a general, David, and they were permanently in the military.
100%. I'm not right now. I'm just pointing out that we're talking about doing things that are really dangerous. Like the thing, because I'm not talking about the American army. I'm speaking about the Israeli army. The American army, you could say I can make a career and don't worry about it. You know what I mean? The Israeli army, I don't think anybody has any ideas that they're never going to see bloodshed. I think everybody is Israeli army. It's for real. That's I don't know what the statistic is. There's probably some statistic of every soldier probably was in some battle. Obviously, if he's a soldier that's not a desk job in the army. It's a dangerous place to be. Well, you're allowed, but it's a question. It's not a question. So here we see this idea that a person is allowed to put themselves in danger for a good reason. Okay. Now, that's the night of Yehuda. A person who put themselves in sakonis nefashos on Shabbos, the Magen Avrohom says that you're not mechal Shabbos to save it. As I said before, let him rot. Let him die. He put himself in there. Tough luck on him. That's what the Magen Avrohom says. The English Moshe, he has a difficult understanding this, and he tells us that this is not said in all cases of danger. There's danger and there's danger, right? That's what we're speaking about today. There's danger and there's danger. Not all dangers are created equal. Valpizes Simchen Achshav. Venira, the Lord Ari B'yesh Chash Sakona Mamish. The case where we say that don't save the guy, it's not talking about where there is a real sakana in front of us. Shal Machmer B'zeh, you don't save the guy. Mischai ben Avsha. You're a tzech, so to speak. There are certain things that depend on a person's fright factor. That's what I'll call it. Okay. There's some people that are gutsy. He doesn't see this as a sakana. He's not worried about being left alone. There's some people that have a weak heart. And they call it a sakana. I'm going to give you an example. I was asked this question on a Sunday morning. There's a heart doctor who lived in Ramat Beit Shemesh, and he worked in Shari Tzedek. And on Shabbos, he got a phone call that one of his patients came in, is in cardiac arrest. He should come into the hospital. So he gets into his car on Shabbos afternoon. It was Friday night, I think it was. And he starts driving, the 375, and then you go to 386, the back road. The back road's over there. And as he's driving, his phone rings again. And it's the hospital. He answers the phone and said he died. Okay, so he has no reason to go to the hospital anymore. What? No reason to drive. Are you willing to stay in those woods by yourself for 18 hours? This is the question I was asked. Is he allowed to drive home?
Yeah.
What?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. What happened to you?
That area?
He will not go
That's
because he cannot return.
No, the question over here is there a sakana over here? Is there a sakana? That's different heter. Is there a sakana over here? Hey, you know what? I see bochrim, I see the people, hikers that hike there and sleep there all the time. This is not Aza.
He said it earlier. One has footprint, one doesn't.
Oh, so here, that's so now. Wait, so you have over here two guys. One guy says, I'm staying here, and the other guy says, I'm driving home. So he says, you're Machal Shabbos, and he says, you're a shaita, right? Who's right? Right? Who's right? Get a new rabbi. Okay. Right. So this is what the Gesmoshe says there. Could you guarantee that the guy will be safe there? Can't guarantee it. Could you say that it's dangerous there? Can't say that either. I can't say either one. It's like depends on your disposition. So what? How he feels. So this is what Rav Moshe Feinstein says. The person that finds himself in a sakana, which we all understand is a sakana, in that situation, you're allowed to be Machal Shabbos if the guy put himself into that situation. But if the guy put himself into a situation like that situation, which, if I wouldn't be speaking to the under 60 people instead of the over 60 people, I'd probably get the opposite response. What's wrong with there, right? And if I was under 20, they wouldn't even know what I'm talking about, right? So here you have different people who have different dispositions. So that's what he says. That those people consider this a sakana. Umutar mechalal, and those people, it's a mutar for them to be mechalal Shabbos and yitztarchu b'hai gavna b'Shabbos. Sharei, this is the important word. Sharei ein yecholim la'arav lahem shlo yisakana. I can't say, don't worry about it. Everything will be okay. Can I say that? I can't say that. I can't say that. You're not guaranteeing it to me. So it's a sakana. And this is an individual question, not individual for the rabbi. It's an individual question. How do you perceive the situation? Different people will perceive it differently, and therefore the halacha is fluid. If a person has this kind of a mindset, in such a case, then we say that you're not mechuyev to Machal Shabbos to save the guy, because that idiot went hiking over there by himself. But if he did something which is dangerous, then that's a totally different thing. Okay, so here we have Again, I'm going to stop over here. This is the next shlav of understanding that even sakanos have their price. Sometimes it's emotional, and sometimes it's made up in a person's brain. And it's true. It could be even true. And the halacha will depend on that. What we're going to do in such a situation. All right. We'll stop over here. You're welcome.